Hello and welcome back to I Completed 80s Music, your tour through the history of the best, brightest, most interesting and downright weird songs of the most colourful decade in music. I'm the 80s Mixtaper, and today we pack up our tents from the base camp of 1980 and start to scale the music of 1981. For the uninitiated, in 2016, in a fit of boredom, I decided that I'd try to listen to every single charting entry of the UK charts from the 31st of December 1979 to the 31st of December 1989. I was just about over halfway when COVID hit, and then being stuck indoors, it sped up the process quite a bit, as you can imagine. A lot of Dire Straits, Madonna and Kylie Minogue later, and by 2021 I'd done it. And I enjoyed it so much, I actually started again. However, I then thought about a podcast talking about the biggest, most interesting and fun or odd songs, and I Completed 80s Music was born. We have just completed 1980, the year that was sort of one foot in the 70s and another just gingerly dipping a toe into the water of the 80s. But 81, it all kicks off. Literally in this first episode, we'll hear two of the most iconic songs of the decade, let alone the year. As usual, we can't actually play the songs on the pod due to copyright laws, but you will find links to two neatly crafted playlists for Spotify and Apple Music in the episode description. And just in case those don't work on your podcast platform of choice, there is also a full song listing below. We also do love to hear your memories, corrections and fun facts on this show. So if you'd like to contact us, we're on all the socials as the 80s Mixtaper, that's 80s. Or if you're old school like me, you can email in to completed80s@aol.com. Again, that's 80s. 1981. What does 1981 mean for me? Well, a bit like 1980, not a huge amount actually. I was just 18 months old at the start of 1980 and 2.5 by the time the year ends. My family moved from Scotland to Norfolk. I remember eating fresh peas in the garden, absolute heaven. My dad had a little allotment at the bottom, and then having that heaven invaded by some geese that had escaped the mesh fence between our neighbour's house, and those geese chasing me around the garden and back inside. Never liked geese since, but there we go. Anyway, beyond that, musically, my mind was blown in 1981. It was really the first year that I suppose as a 3-year-old, I started to be sort of cognizant of the power of music. Later on in the year, I guess I was probably 3 at that point, my sister got a best of Top of the Pops album on vinyl. For any nostalgic people out there, it was the one with the very cute blonde woman wearing what looks like a black leotard shot side on, and she's drinking from a peculiar looking Coke bottle. It was a Hallmark release, so all the songs were covers, but they were pretty well done, and it was loaded with Joe Dolce, Roxy Music, Shakin' Stevens, Bucks Fizz, Adamant, and quite a few more. And I loved that album, absolutely adored it. But being a 3-year-old was also more interested in Lego and eventually Star Wars and then Transformers and then eventually my Spectrum 48K in a few years. I didn't start getting music for Christmas or buying my own until probably about 1988. But the foundation was laid in 1981. So what does 81 offer us? Well, reasonably quickly we get Shakin' Stevens and Kim Wilde, the two biggest UK-based solo artists of the decade. We get Duran Duran, we get Soft Cell, we get Depeche Mode, we get the Human League. Adamant has a massive year and many, many more. It's a year that the party begins in earnest. Though using that analogy, we're just downing shots before heading out into the night at this early stage. The UK is still full of political unrest and the Falklands are only a year away, but there seems to be a happier sentiment to the music and the fashions. It feels more upbeat as a year, and as we'll see, acts like Duran Duran and Spandau Ballet will bring a certain sartorial elan to proceedings. And on that note, let's jump back into the music. Okay, let's kick off 1981, but first let's roll the tape back slightly to late 1980. David Bowie's Fresh Off Fashion, that slinky strutting single from Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, which drops in October 1980. The single Fashion was a banger, a razor-sharp disco funk cut with Robert Fripp's guitar slicing through like a switchblade. It hit number 5 in the UK and had people up on their feet. But Bowie, being Bowie, doesn't sit still. He's already cooking up the next move, and in January 1981, he drops the title track, Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, as the album's second single. This is Bowie leaning hard into the weird, the raw, the unpolished edge of his genius. Let's unpack it. This is track 1, Playlist 18, our first song of 1981. The Scary Monsters single, released January the 2nd, 1981, is a beast. It's not a pop confection like Fashion. This is Bowie snarling, spitting and spiralling through a dystopian funhouse. The track, clocking in at 5 minutes 10 on the album, is a chaotic stew of Fripp's jagged guitar, Dennis Davis' relentless drums, and Bowie's vocals, which swing from manic to menacing. Lyrically, it's a fever dream of paranoia and obsession. She had a horror of rooms, she was tired, you can't hide me. When I looked in her eyes they were blue but nobody home. Bowie sings, his voice dripping with unease. This isn't a love song, it's a psychological horror flick in 4 chords. The scary monsters and super creeps keep me running, running scared. Refrain, it's catchy but unhinged, like a nursery rhyme for a haunted house. Bowie recorded Scary Monsters, the album, in 1980 at the Power Station in New York, with some overdubs in London. Tony Visconti, his longtime producer, is back in the booth, and the vibe is gritty. Bowie's coming off the Berlin trilogy, Low, Heroes, Lodger, where he rewrote the rulebook with Brian Eno. But Scary Monsters isn't experimental in that ambient krautrock way. It's Bowie synthesizing everything. Glam, art rock, punk, new wave. The single's sound is dense, almost claustrophobic. Chart-wise, the single didn't soar like Fashion. It only peaked at number 20 in the UK, respectable but not a blockbuster. It wasn't a radio darling, it's too abrasive, too odd. But Bowie's not chasing hits here, he's exercising demons. The song's about a relationship crumbling under mental strain. Some say it's inspired by his own past, maybe his marriage to Angie, which was imploding. The lyrics, precise as a scalpel, paint a woman unravelling. She opened strange doors that we'd never close again. It's vivid, unsettling, and deeply Bowie. The B-side's worth a nod too. In the UK, it's Because You're Young, another Scary Monsters album cut, with Pete Townshend's guitar and synths that nod to Bowie's Berlin era. It's a melodic ode to youth and recklessness, less feral than the A-side, but still layered. Visually, Bowie's in full Scary Monsters mode for the single's promo. The album's cover art, a Pierrot clown, Bowie, half cabaret, half nightmare, sets the tone. Context matters here. In 1981, the UK's music scene is a mess of post-punk, new wave and synth-pop. Joy Division's gone, Ian Curtis dead less than a year. The Clash are still swinging, but punk is fading. Bowie's not competing with them, he's above it. Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, the album, is a bridge between his 70s art rock and the pop juggernaut he'll become with Let's Dance in 83. The single's a snapshot of that pivot, raw, experimental, but with hooks, or in this particular case, claws. Critics loved it, the Enemy called the album a masterpiece, and the single's edge cemented Bowie's rep as a shapeshifter who could outweird anyone. Why does this song endure? It's not just the sound, it's Bowie's ability to make the personal universal. The scary monsters aren't just in the lyrics, they're in your head, your relationships, your fears. The song's a mirror, and it's not flattering, yet it's exhilarating. That push-pull, beauty and chaos is why we keep coming back. By 81, Bowie's already a legend, but he's not coasting, he's not done yet. He's clawing at the future, and Scary Monsters is the sound of that fight. Track 2, and we're back with the mantra that all it takes is one good song. Who cares if you're a one-hit wonder, right? Let's talk about a song that's like a Polaroid snapshot of New Wave's fleeting glory. Twilight Café by Susan Fassbender and Kay Russell. This is a one-hit wonder that's equal parts catchy and heartbreaking, a synth-soaked banger that climbed to number 21 on the UK charts in February 1981, and then vanished like a dream you can't quite shake. It's the kind of track that makes you wonder why the world didn't give these two more than one shot. So let's unpack the song, the duo, and the moment they owned, however briefly. Susan Fassbender, born Susan Catherine Wincup on April the 30th, 1959, in Bradford, West Yorkshire, was a musical prodigy from the jump. By 13, she was studying classical piano, clarinet and timpani, later adding synthesizer to her arsenal. The name Fassbender, that was her mother's maiden name, a stage moniker that gave her a touch of mystique. Growing up in working-class Bradford, she was surrounded by the grit of post-industrial England, but her music was all about escape. Enter Kay Russell, a guitarist with a knack for infectious hooks and a smile that could light up a TV screen. Russell had been kicking around Bradford's new wave scene, playing with poet Nick Tokschek in a band called Ulterior Motives. She was no stranger to the hustle, having faced gender-based roadblocks in dead-end office jobs while practicing guitar in her spare time. The two met in Bradford, both unemployed and restless, bonded over music, and started writing together. As Russell told Penny Black Music in 2012, "Once I heard Susan play the piano, I thought we could work together, so I suggested it, and then I formed a band around us." They impressed a guy named Alan Brown in a musical instrument shop. Imagine that, a record deal born in a store aisle. And they landed a contract with indie label Criminal Records. That's where Twilight Café was born, a song they wrote together with Fassbender on vocals and keyboards and Russell on guitar. The band rounded out with drummer Gary Walsh and bassist Mike Close, and by late 1980, the single was ready to drop. Of the song itself, Twilight Café is a 3-minute burst of new wave joy, built on a pounding bass line, synth arpeggios that nod to the Stranglers' Dave Greenfield, and a 4-chord sequence that feels like it's been around forever. Fassbender's vocals, described as northerly monotone, carry this wistful, almost detached longing, a throwback to Martha and the Muffins perhaps. The lyrics, precise as they are, paint a vivid picture. Sometimes I get so low, there's only one place I can think of to go. It's where the beat is strong, strong, strong. Melodies drifting, I can sing my song. It's about finding solace in a neon-lit club, a place where the cares and worries of a busy day just slide across me as I start to play. The chorus hits like a sugar rush. Walk down the high street, I'm on the neon lights, and pretty soon I'll find my way to the Twilight Café. It's escapist, sure, but there's a rawness to it, like Fassbender singing about a lifeline. The song's production, handled by Pete Smith, gives us that slick, radio-ready sheen. It's got a bounce that landed it on top of the pops twice in January 1981, with Fassbender bolt upright at her electric piano and Russell grinning through mimed harmonies. They also hit German TV's disco and kids shows like Cheggers Plays Pop. Criminal Records couldn't keep up with demand, so CBS swooped in, reissuing the single in the UK and Germany. It even got a 12-inch maxi single in Germany, a rare flex for a debut. The track spent 8 weeks on the UK chart, peaking at number 21, a respectable showing for two unknowns from Bradford. But here's where it gets bittersweet. Twilight Café was their only hit. Follow-up singles Stay and Merry-Go-Round, both credited to Fassbender and Russell, flopped. CBS dropped them, and a planned new album never materialised. By the mid-1980s, both women stepped back from music. Fassbender to raise 3 daughters, Russell to other pursuits. They kept writing together and separately, but the industry wasn't interested. Fassbender, now Susan Baggio after marrying in 1983, tragically took her own life in 1991 at 32. Russell preserved their demos, and in 2012, Platform Records released Twilight Café, the Demo Collection, 1981 to 1985, a 20-track gem that showed what could have been. What makes Twilight Café endure? It's the sincerity. Fassbender and Russell weren't chasing trends, they were just making music they loved. The song's got this universal ache, wanting to escape, to feel alive, to connect. Fans on YouTube still call it a hidden gem, comparing it to Martha and the Muffins' Echo Beach for its earworm quality. Russell's kept the flame alive, writing new music with Ewan McKenzie and launching a website in 2019 to share their story. Twilight Café is a reminder of how fleeting fame can be, but also how a single song can burn bright forever. Track 3, and next up we have a biggie, a big biggie. Just 3 songs in, and we have a contender not just for Song of the Year, but for the decade. We pick up where we left off with Ultravox, fresh off their 1980 single Sleepwalk, which clawed its way to number 29 on the charts. A modest win for a band that had been through the ringer. That was the new lineup's first swing, John Fox out, Midge in, steering this new romantic synth-pop juggernaut towards something grander. Now we're diving into Vienna, the title track from their 4th album, released January the 9th, 1981. And this is where Ultravox doesn't just hit, they detonate something massive. This is a song that's less a single and more a cathedral of sound, a 5-minute melodrama that's equal parts icy synths and burning heartbreak. It's Ultravox at their peak, and it's got a story that's as majestic as the song itself. Press play now. So it's 1980. Ultravox are in a London rehearsal studio, broke as hell, sticky carpets underfoot, the smell of stale beer in the air. Well, that's at least how I imagine it. They're piecing together Vienna, the album, with Midge, ex-slick, ex-rich kids kind of visage, still settling into his role as the frontman. The band's got Billy Currie on keys and viola, Chris Cross on bass, and Warren Cann on drums, and they're bouncing off each other, tossing ideas around like a game of hot potato. Cann lays down this hypnotic Roland CR78 drum machine pattern, synonymous with Vienna, like a train rolling through a foggy European night. Billy Currie, the classically trained madman, is channeling late 19th century romantic composers. Think Grieg, Elgar, maybe a dash of Max Reger for that overwrought viola solo. Midge's at the mic, scribbling lyrics about a fleeting holiday romance. Not some highfalutin nod to Gustav Klimt or the Vienna Succession, despite what he'd later fibbed to the press. He'd got one line in his head. The feeling is gone. This means nothing to me, oh Vienna. And from that spark, they build a monster. The song itself is a new wave ballad that feels like it's been carved out of marble. You've got this stately grand piano in the verses, a solid mini-moog synth bass line, and that Elka string synthesizer washing over everything like a cold wave. The viola solo in the middle, Curry's baby, vibrates with this exaggerated, almost parodic romanticism, like a silent film score gone rogue. Midge's vocals are pure theatre, soaring and anguished. We walked in the cold air, freezing breath on a window pane, lying and waiting. The chorus hits like a gut punch. It means nothing to me. This means nothing to me. Oh, Vienna. It's not just a breakup song. It's a breakup song set in a city that feels like a fading dream, all glamour and gloom. Producer Connie Plank, the German wizard who'd worked with Kraftwerk, eggs them on to lean into the pomp, to make the ending bigger than the song itself. And they do. Those final notes linger like frost on a window. Vienna drops as the 3rd single from the album after Sleepwalk and Passing Strangers, which tanked at number 57. Chrysalis Records, their label, are sweating bullets. They think it's too long at 6 minutes, too weird, too slow for the top 30. The band fights tooth and nail to keep it unedited. Well, almost. They trim the intro and fade out slightly. It's a gamble, but it pays off. Vienna storms the UK singles chart, peaking at number 2 for 4 weeks, held off the top spot first by John Lennon's Woman, and then infamously by Joe Dolce's novelty earworm, Shut Up Your Face. That's right, Ultravox's magnum opus, a synth-pop symphony, and in the list for songs you'd most likely play to an alien to explain the 80s, gets cock-blocked by a guy in a pork pie hat, warbling about Italian stereotypes. Midge's still salty about it. In 2017, he dodged a chance to meet Dolce, saying he had 40 years of people talking about Joe Bloody Dolce. But the public loved Vienna. It goes gold, selling over 500,000 copies, and ends 1981 as the UK's 6th best-selling single. It tops charts in Belgium, Ireland, and the Netherlands. And in 2012, BBC Radio 2 and the official charts company crown it Britain's favourite number 2 single ever, beating out Fairy Tale of New York and Wonderwall. The music video, directed by Russell Mulcahy, is another beast. Shot on a shoestring budget of 6,000 to 7,000, Ultravox footed the bill themselves after Chrysalis balked. It's a love letter to the third man, all moody black and white shots and noir vibes. Half of it's filmed in central London, not Vienna, Covent Garden, the old Kilburn Gaumont Theatre, because who's got the cash for a plane ticket? There's an embassy party scene in some rented townhouse, with the crew fussing over lights for hours. It's gritty, scrappy, but it works, evoking the same haunted elegance as the song. Midge, in thrift shop threads, looks like he's wandered out of a spy flick. Vienna is Ultravox's signature song. It's a cornerstone of synth pop, a cornerstone of 80s music, a reason why this podcast exists. It is a bridge between Kraftwerk's cold futurism and the new romantic swagger of Duran Duran, which is literally weeks away. It's been covered. Vic Reeves did a weird version in '92, sampled Take That 8 Letters in 2010, and plastered across TV shows like Doctor Who and American Crime Story. The album Vienna rides the single's coattails, hitting number 3 on the UK album chart. For a band that was dropped by Island Records 2 years earlier, this is a phoenix from the ashes moment. It's a song that dares to be overwrought, to pile on the drama until it's almost absurd, and yet it works because it's so unreservedly sincere. Midge sings like his heart's breaking, and you can believe him. Billy Curry's viola wails like it's mourning a lost empire. Warren Cahn's drum machine keeps it grounded and relentless. This is a band that was skint, scrappy, and a little too in love with their own ambition, and it's perfect. Vienna is the sound of Ultravox saying, we're still here, and we're going to make you feel something. And 44 years later, those haunting notes, those pizzicato strings, that rhythm calling, they still do. Next up, we meet Dire Straits, just before Dire Straits' massive 80s. But this is by far my favourite song of theirs, and has one of the most stunning will she won't she pauses in music history. Track 4 is the irrepressibly beautiful Romeo and Juliet. You and me, babe. How about it? This is a song that feels like a cigarette burn on your heart. A slow rolling ache, wrapped in arpeggiated guitar, and a story that's equal parts Shakespeare and romantic streetlight. Romeo and Juliet, the 1981 single from their third album, Making Movies. This is our first dance with Dire Straits, so we're going to get to know the band, unpack the song's DNA, and figure out why it's still got us swooning under a street lamp 44 years later. Buckle up, this one's a long, tender bruise. Dire Straits formed in 1977 in Deptford, South London, a gritty pocket of the city where dreams of rock stardom felt like a long-distance dream. The band was fronted by Mark Knopfler, a Glasgow-born, Newcastle-raised guitarist with a voice like weathered denim and fingers that could make a Fender Stratocaster weep. Mark, born in 1949, was a former journalist and English teacher who'd spent his 20s gigging in pub bands, soaking up Dylan, J.J. Cale and Hank Marvin. His younger brother, David Knopfler, played rhythm guitar, bringing a sibling dynamic that was as combustible as it was creative. John Ilsley, a bassist with a steady hand and a knack for anchoring Mark's sprawling ideas, rounded out the core trio. Drummer Patrick Withers, a session vet who played with everyone from Dave Edmunds to Magna Carta, gave the song its pulse. They were 4 guys in their late 20s and early 30s, scraping by in a post-punk world, playing music that felt like it belonged in a smoky bar at 2 a.m. Their name, Dire Straits, was a nod to their financial reality. Broke, living in a council flat, rehearsing in a friend's gallery space. But Mark's songwriting, a blend of cinematic storytelling and pub rock grit, set them apart. Their 1978 debut album, Dire Straits, was a sleeper hit, recorded on a shoestring at Basing Street Studios. The single, Sultans of Swing, became a slow burn classic, peaking at number 8 in the UK in 1979 and cracking the US top 5. Its clean, lyrical guitar riffs and a tale of a struggling bar band struck a chord. The follow-up, Communique in 1979, was solid but less explosive, peaking at number 5 in the UK. Critics called it more of the same, great guitar, great stories, but no Sultan's moment. Tension simmered. David was already feeling sidelined by Mark's control. By 1980, Dire Straits were at a crossroads. They headed to New York's Power Station studio to record Making Movies, their third album, with producer Jimmy Iovine, fresh off Patti Smith's Easter and Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run. This was a big swing, bigger budget, bigger ambitions. David Knopfler quit mid-sessions, fed up with Mark's perfectionism, leaving the band a trio plus session players. Keyboardist Roy Bittan, a Springsteen E Street stalwart, joined the fray, bringing a cinematic heft. Making Movies, released in October 1980, was a leap, lush, emotional, and built around Mark's storytelling. Tracks like Tunnel of Love and Skate Away showed a band reaching for something grander. But the crown jewel was Romeo and Juliet, released as a single in January 1981. Clocking in at 6 minutes, Romeo and Juliet is a heartbreak epic, a modern spin on Shakespeare's Lovers filtered through Mark Knopfler's busted romance with Holly Vincent, frontwoman of Holly and the Italians. Mark and Holly dated briefly in 1980, a fling that ended messily when she, per Mark's perspective, used him to boost her career. In a TV interview, Holly said, "I had a scene with Mark Knopfler and it got to the point where he couldn't handle it and we split up. That line stung Mark, and it birthed the song's gut punch lyric, 'Now you just say, oh Romeo, yeah, you know I used to have a scene with him.'" The track opens with Mark's national-style O guitar, played in an open G tuning, spinning out arpeggios that feels like moonlight on a dirty street. In the Sky Arts Doc Guitar Stories, Mark Knopfler says he stumbled on the riff while messing around, and it became the song's heartbeat. Roy Bittan's piano, cribbing a lick from Springsteen's Jungleland, adds a wistful glow. The verses are spare, Mark's voice half-spoken, half-sung, like Dylan with a Geordie lilt. The chorus kicks into a full rock arrangement, stronger drums, guitars calling out in the darkness, but it's the lyrics that cut the deepest. A love-struck Romeo sings a street sus serenade, laying everybody low with a love song that he made, finds a streetlight, steps out of the shade, says something like, "You and me, babe, how about it?" It's Romeo, our boy, serenading Juliet, who's moved on to a glitzier life. She snaps back. Juliet says, "Hey, it's Romeo. You nearly gave me a heart attack." He's underneath the window. She's singing, "Hey, la, my boyfriend's back." The heartbreak peaks in the chorus. "Juliet, the dice was loaded from the start, and I bet when you exploded into my heart, and I forget, the movie song, when you're going to realise it was just that the time was wrong, Juliet." That movie song line nods to Somewhere from West Side Story, the 1960s musical reworking of Romeo and Juliet. The lyric, "There's a place for us," you know, the movie song, is Mark's Romeo pleading that their love could have worked if only the timing wasn't cursed. It's not about Shakespeare's Verona feud, it's fame, not family, keeping these lovers apart. Juliet's climbed out of her shared streets of shame, leaving Romeo grasping at rhymes. "All I do is kiss you through the bars of a rhyme. Julie, I'd do the stars with you anytime." The song's UK chart run was solid but not earth-shaking. Romeo and Juliet peaked at number 11 in February 1981, a respectable follow-up to Making Movies' number 4 album peak. It didn't crack the US Hot 100, but became a radio staple, its slow-burn romance resonating with anyone who's ever loved and lost. Critics loved it, Record World called it beautiful and forceful, praising Mark's Dylan-esque vocals and guitar. Ultimate Classic Rock's Michael Gallucci ranked it Dire Straits' third best song, noting its bridge between Shakespeare, West Side Story, and rock and roll. Classic Rock's Paul Rees called it spine-tingling with a heart-tugging refrain. Why does it endure? It's the ache in Mark's voice, the way he sells Romeo's desperation without overplaying it. It's the guitar, those arpeggios that feel like they're tracing the cracks in your soul. It's the story, specific to Mark's hurt, but universal enough to map onto your own late-night regrets. The Killers covered it in 2007, their version raw and reverent, with Brandon Flowers calling it one of the finest songs ever. Amy Ray of Indigo Girls made it a staple. Her take's so emotional, she limits performing it to keep it fresh. Reddit threads on Dire Straits gush over lines like, "I'd do the stars with you anytime," with fans debating if it's about fate or just love's bad timing. This is Dire Straits scaling their peak, before Brothers in Arms made them stadium gods, when they were still a band of strivers pouring their guts into every note. Romeo and Juliet is a song about longing, about the stories we tell ourselves to make sense of loss. It's Mark Knopfler standing under a streetlight, guitar in hand, singing to a window that's already closed. For me personally, it's the moment at 4 minutes and 41 seconds. Get to that point in the song, close your eyes and listen to You and Me, Babe. How about it? And then listen to the simplest of guitar licks that takes you home, in or out of love. It's beautifully simple, but somehow compels you more than anything that it's enough. For track 5, we're back with Diana Ross, picking up where we left off in 1980 with the seismic, joyous strut of I'm Coming Out. That was Diana at her peak, reinvented by Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards, shaking off the Motown shackles and stepping into a new decade with a disco anthem that still lights up dance floors and pride parades. But now it's late 1980 in the US, and Diana's taking a sharp left turn, less glitter, more gravitas, with It's My Turn, the theme song to a rom-com nobody remembers, written by two heavyweights who knew how to make a ballad. This is Diana leaning into her diva era, not just singing but declaring. And next up, we'll look at why this song, despite not hitting the stratosphere like Upside Down, still carries weight. It's September the 29th, 1980 in the USA, and Motown drops It's My Turn as the lead single from the soundtrack to It's My Turn, a Columbia Pictures flick starring Jill Clayburgh and Michael Douglas. The movie's a footnote, something about a maths professor juggling love and ambition, but the song, that's a different matter. Written by Carol Bayer Sager and lyrics, and Michael Masser for the music and production, this is a ballad built for big moments. Sager's pen is sharp, coming off hits like Nobody Does It Better for Carly Simon. Masser's got a track record with Whitney Houston and Natalie Cole, crafting melodies that cling to your ribs. Together, they hand Diana a song that's less about romance and more about self-assertion. A woman done compromising. I can't cover up my feelings in the name of love, she sings. And you feel the weight of every syllable, or play it safe. For a while that was easy. It's not a break-up song, it's a breakthrough song. The track itself is lush but restrained. Masser's production swaddles Diana's voice in strings and soft piano, letting her soar without overcooking the drama. Her delivery is pure conviction. She's proclaiming, "And if living for myself is what I'm guilty of, go on and sentence me, I'll still be free." Those lines hit like a verdict, Diana standing tall as both the accused and the judge. This is the same woman who fronted the Supremes, who survived Motown's machine, who's now navigating her late 30s with 2 Hollywood Walk of Fame stars and a Billboard nod as the top female entertainer of the century. She's earned the right to say, "It's my turn now." Chart-wise, it's a solid performer, not a juggernaut. In the US, it peaks at number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100 and Adult Contemporary charts and number 14 on the R&B chart, hanging around for 15 weeks in 1981. Over in the UK, it was released in January 1981 and it climbs to number 16. A respectable showing, but no match for the number 2 peak of Upside Down or the cultural juggernaut of I'm Coming Out. Still, the song's impact transcends numbers. It's the kind of track that gets licensed for drama. By 1984, it's the theme for a Philippine anthology series, Connie Reyes on Camera. It's Diana as a universal voice, not just as a pop star. This is also Diana's final Motown single before she jumps to RCA for a $20 million deal, a move that screams, "I'm bigger than any label." The To Love Again compilation, released in February 1981, includes It's My Turn as its anchor, a bridge between her Motown past and her RCA future. That context matters. Diana's not just singing about personal liberation, she's living it. She's left the Supremes, starred in Lady Sings the Blues, and now she's betting on herself. The song's defiance mirrors her career. Go and sentence me, I'll still be free. Let's talk about the song's heart. It's not flashy like I'm Coming Out or sultry like Love Hangover. It's raw, almost confessional. Diana's voice just gives enough to make you believe she's been through the ringer. Maybe not in love, but in life. You can imagine her in the studio, eyes closed, channeling every time she was told to smile and play nice. This is Diana Ross, mother, actress, icon, saying, I've paid my dues 11 times over. If I'm Coming Out was a party, It's My Turn is the morning after, when you're staring at the mirror and deciding who you're going to be. It's not her biggest hit, but it's one of her truest. And in 1981, as Diana reflected on where she's been and where she was going, it was exactly what she needed to say. Okay, so earlier on, we had a contender not just for Song of 1981, but the whole decade with Ultravox's Vienna. Well, would it be rude to add another song for both of those categories in the very same episode, our first episode for 1981? I know these are pretty hot takes, and I'm not saying they're the best tunes, but wow, our next song is definitely as up there as Vienna. It's time to meet one of the cornerstones of male solo artists of the 1980s. Ironically, we've already met him with Genesis, Phil Collins, and we're zeroing in on a song that's less a track and more a cultural sledgehammer. In the Air Tonight, released January the 9th, 1981. Last time we hung out with Collins, he was steering Genesis through the pop-prog pivot of Turn It On Again from their 1980 album Duke, stepping into the frontman role after Peter Gabriel left. For us, that was way back in episode 7.5. That tune was Genesis leaning into tighter, radio-friendly hooks, but still with enough art rock DNA to keep the old fans nodding. Now we're at the dawns of Collins' solo career, where he takes that accessibility and douses it in raw, personal venom, creating a song that's haunted stereos, TV screens, and guerrilla starring chocolate ads for decades. Thank you, Cadbury's. Why does a guy who just became the voice of a globally touring band decide to go it alone? Let's find out. This is track 6. So, it's late 1970s, and Phil Collins is not just Genesis drummer, but its newly minted lead singer, a role he reluctantly took after Gabriel's split. The band's on the cusp of something big with And Then There Were Three, which spits out their first real hit, Follow You, Follow Me. But at home, things are crumbling. His wife, Andrea Bertarelli, is fed up with his relentless touring. She tells him if he does the full world tour, she's gone. Collins, thinking Genesis is this close to cracking the big time, goes anyway. Bad call. Andrea takes their kids and bolts to their parents in Vancouver. Phil follows, trying to save the marriage, but by 1979, it's over. He's back in England, heartbroken, angry, and tinkering in his makeshift bedroom studio. This is where In the Air Tonight is born, not as a Genesis song, but as something too raw, too his, to hand over to the band. Collins had been itching to do a solo record, inspired by his love of soul and R&B, genres Genesis only flirted with. He takes this to his demos for face value, his debut solo album. In the Air Tonight is the first single, and it's a Molotov cocktail of minimalist synths, a Roland CR78 drum machine, and that drum fill at the 3 minutes and 40-second mark, which hits like a thunderclap after 3 minutes of simmering tension. Collins himself said he wasn't sure what the song was about, but the lyrics, spat out spontaneously, drip with rage. Well, if you told me you were drowning, I would not lend a hand. I've seen your face before, my friend, but I don't know if you know who I am. It's cryptic, it's personal, and it's universal all at once. The song's ties to why Collins went solo. Genesis was a democracy. Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford had their own side projects, and Collins felt constrained by the band's prog roots. He offered In the Air Tonight to Genesis, but whether they rejected it, as he claims, or he never played it to them, as Bank insists, It was too stark, too ungenesis to fit. So he runs with it himself, turning his divorce's despair into a sonic exorcism. The result? A number 2 peak on the UK singles chart on February the 1st, 1981, held off the top spot by John Lennon's posthumous Woman. It hits number 1 in Austria, Germany, Switzerland and Sweden, number 19 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 2 on the US Rock Tracks chart, later going gold with 500,000 copies sold. Face Value itself tops the UK albums chart for 3 weeks and goes 5 times platinum. Stuart Orm's music video, with its black and white close-ups of Collins' face and that eerie hallway of locked doors, gets heavy MTV rotation when the channel launches in August 1981. The track's cultural footprint is absurd. It is one of the most pivotal scenes of another 1980s icon. It's a TV programme, Miami Vice, where Crockett and Tubbs cruise through the neon-soaked streets. It's in The Hangover, where Mike Tyson air drums before knocking out Zach Galifianakis. And of course, it is legendary if you live in the UK for the advert for Cadbury Dairy Milk, with a gorilla bashing the drum fill, pushing the song back to number 14 in the UK. Hell, it's even in Grand Theft Auto Vice City stories. By 2020, a viral reaction video by YouTubers Tim and Fred Williams sends it to number 2 on iTunes, and in 2024, Jake Paul uses it as his entrance music for a Mike Tyson boxing match. That drum fill, though, it's a paradigm shift born from a fluke with the SSL console reverse talkback circuit. It's Collins rewiring the board overnight to capture that compressed, apocalyptic sound. It's so iconic that when Collins played it at Live Aid in 1985, performing in both Philadelphia and London at the same time, Pete Townsend reportedly groaned, "Are you going to do that fucking song again?" It is the sound of the 80s, influencing everyone from Kate Bush to DMX, who sampled it in 1998. Collins himself called it a stone around my neck in 2016, but he loves it anyway. So why go solo as well as being Genesis? Because Genesis, for all its brilliance, was a machine with too many cooks. Collins' marriage imploded, and he needed an outlet that wasn't a band meeting. In the Air Tonight wasn't just a breakup song, it was a declaration of independence. He's not abandoning Genesis, he's still with them for Abacab later in 1981, but he's staking his claim as a solo force. The song's rawness, its refusal to resolve neatly, makes it timeless. It's not about drowning urban legends, sorry, no evidence for those. It's about a man staring into the void and drumming his way out. By the time Face Value drops, Collins is no longer just Genesis drummer turned singer. He's a pop juggernaut, outstripping his band's sales and setting the stage for a decade of hits like Against All Odds and Susudio. In the Air Tonight is the spark, proof that personal wreckage can birth something seismic. It's Phil Collins, unfiltered, pounding the drums like he's exorcising demons, and we're all still air drumming along, waiting for that drop, while munching on a bar of dairy milk. For a final song of this episode, we're ending on a lighter note. It's early, very early 1981, when the UK music scene was a glorious mess of punk's fading snarl, new wave's shiny hooks, and the death throes of disco. Into this chaos struts Honeybane, a 17-year-old punk firebrand with a voice like a lit fuse and a single, Turn Me On, Turn Me Off, that's equal parts bubblegum pop and defiant sneer. This is her moment, her one shot at the big time, peaking at number 37 on the UK chart and landing her on top of the pops. It's a song that's as catchy as hell, a little weird, and a perfect snapshot of a kid from the punk underground trying to navigate the glossy world of pop. This is our track 7. Honeybane, born Donna Tracy Boyland in 1964 in London, was a teenage runaway with a rap sheet and a reputation. At 14, she's fronting the Fatal Microbes, a punk band that drops a split 12-inch with the narco-punk legends Poison Girls in 1978. Their single Violence Grows gets some love from Sounds magazine, and Bane's raw, jagged energy makes her a cult figure. But the microbes implode by 1979 and Bain's life gets messier. She's in and out of juvenile detention, on the run from social services, and cutting tracks with Crass under the alias Donna and the Kebabs. Their 1979 EP, You Can Be You, is pure anarcho-punk grit. She even pops up singing with Killing Joke in 1980, belting What's the Matter at a London gig, later immortalised on a live LP. This is a kid living on the edge, music as survival. Then comes 1980, and Sham 69's Jimmy Pursey steps in as her manager, smelling potential. She gets a 5-year deal with EMI Zonophone, and suddenly Bain's trading punk for studio polish. Turn Me On, Turn Me Off, released in 1981, is her big swing. Produced with heavyweights like Alan Shacklock and Steve Levine, it's a sharp left turn from her punk roots. New wave with a ska bounce, all sugary hooks, and a vibe that screams early 80s. The lyrics, sparse and playful, lean into the push-pull of desire. Turn me on, turn me off, flick the switch, I'm electric. Turn me on, turn me off, I'm magnetic. It's not deep, but it's sticky, the kind of earworm that could have been a Blondie B-side. The B-side, In Dreams, goes darker, dubbier, almost cinematic, showing Bain's range. Discog calls it irresistible pop-soaked in new wave sensibility, and they're not wrong. The song's a hit, kind of. Number 37 isn't number 1, but it's enough for Top of the Pops, where Bain's punk kid energy clashes gloriously with the show's cheesy glitz at the time. Watch the 1981 performance on YouTube, and you see her owning it, spiky hair, defiant stare, like she's daring the audience to keep up. But the EMI deal sours fast. Bain's frustrated with the label pushing her towards pop stardom, and after one more chart single, Baby Love, which hit number 58, she bails. Her music career stalls, though she pops up in acting, playing a Borstal girl in 1983's Scrubbers, alongside names like Kathy Burke and Robbie Coltrane. The 80s see her as a pin-up model, the 90s as a band leader for Dog's-Tooth Violet, and by 2015 she's back with an indie album, Acceptance of Existence, and an anthology, It's a Baneful Life, 1978 to 2015, on her own You Can Be You records. Turn Me On, Turn Me Off is Bain's lightning in a bottle moment, a punk kid's flirtation with pop immortality. It's not a classic, but it's a moment in time, raw, scrappy, and unapologetic, like Bain herself. She's still out there, a London mum and grandma now, dropping poetry and planning new music. The song's a time capsule, proof that even a number 37 hit can burn bright if the spirit is true. That's it for the first half of Playlist 18, but do join us again next time as the second half offers up more treats from very early 1981. We get more Clash, more Spandau Ballet, more madness, and we end with another monster hit from Blondie amongst others. As usual, if you can give us a follow on your podcast platform of choice, it all really helps. Until next week, take care.